morning, everyone present here today. Good afternoon, evening to those watching on Zoom, including my family. My name is Sakina Dhorajiwala. I'm a Peace Fellow from India. And today I'm going to be talking about overcoming the last mile challenges, on how research can be used to impact social policy through the journey of my work in India. But before I start with last mile challenges, I'd like to ask the audience here to, by a show of hands, tell me if you've ever experienced a technical snag at work, or while making a payment, the transaction didn't go through, you had to try again. Pretty much everyone, right? Yeah, I thought as much. This happens, it happens a lot. For instance, you go to a grocery store, you're trying to use your card, payment failed, you try again, use another card. It can be a bit frustrating, but it's somewhat okay, you try another time. However, it can be if I told you that each time you had a payment failure, you paid a penalty for it. And just like Randy said that if his phone rang, he had to pay $1,000. That's a sharp penalty, isn't it? And that's unfair and it's frustrating when it's not your fault. That's what last mile challenges are. At the very last step of your transaction, at the very last step of checking out, when there is a payment failure or there is some kind of a challenge that you have to face. That's what I mean by last mile challenges. And today I'm going to be talking about it in the context of social policies in India. Why am I talking about social policies in India? Because it's a big deal. Social program expenditures just on cash transfers amount to about $12 billion in India. And they go towards improving education, healthcare, income support programs. So the last mile challenges are a pretty big deal. But last mile challenges are also very hard to document. This photograph that you see here is one from the state of Jharkhand in India that I have taken during my field work, where you see these women lined up outside a bank waiting to transact, collect their money. But the bank has shut its doors. Why? Because the computer system was down. It's very hard to document these kind of challenges. It's also very difficult to establish accountability. If the computer system was down, who is responsible for it and who should be? Was it the bank managers? Maybe not. It's also very difficult to resolve it quickly because it's difficult to establish accountability, track what's happening with the payment, and so on. And it is especially burdensome for women. As you can see, many of these women are carrying children on their back or coming with toddlers. It's not only the cost that you pay to come to the bank, but it's also the time that you spend going back and forth, sometimes several miles that you have to travel. And also the opportunity cost. So sometimes you lose a whole day's wage in coming all the way to the bank. So these are essentially, it's difficult to track these. Specifically, I want to give you an example of a last mile challenge that I have been working on in India on the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. Another picture from fieldwork in Rajasthan that you see, these women are constructing a farm pond. And they do manual labor work and earn a minimum wage. It's an incredibly important social safety net in India and has its origins in famine relief work. Now, during one of these visits, I met a lady called Radha Devi. Radha had worked in the Employment Guarantee Program as a laborer and had accrued about, earned about 12,000 Indian rupees, which is approximately $200 worth of wages. When I met her, she said she hadn't been paid. So I asked her what happened. And she told me that, when the other women who worked with me started getting money in their bank accounts, I went to check my bank account too. And they told me at the bank that there's nothing in your account. Your wages haven't come yet. So she said, okay, maybe, sometimes it takes time. She went back to the bank. And she made several such trips to the bank. And her wages were still not in her bank. So she went to the administrative office which is responsible for running this program. And she asked them, okay, what's going on? And they said, you know what, we've done our job. We've put your attendance on the computer system. It's now up to the government to pay you. And they were indeed correct. They had done their job. And she had still not been paid. At the time I met her, 8 months had passed since the time she had worked, and she had still not been paid. So I can't stress enough on how important it is to understand and study these challenges. And that's what brings me to the other thing, that she's not alone. There are several more people like Radha who go through this, and challenges remain undocumented. About 6 billion rupees, not dollars, rupees worth of transactions failed and bounced back only in the last year, according to government's records. And this is just this program that I'm talking about, right? There's no estimate on how many citizens get left out because of such challenges. People who face these repeated transaction failures ultimately drop out of that program because they don't get paid, they don't want to work. A lot of academic research done so far has focused on exclusions in social safety nets, so targeting related questions. For instance, I'm a person eligible for a program. Did I make it onto the list? A lot of literature is written on targeting related questions. Another part of the focus has been on corruption and leakages because of corruption. So do I have to pay a bribe to be able to get the job, or do I need to pay a bribe to be able to earn my pension or get the cash? That's what brings me to the story of the work that I was doing and I continue to do. I work with a group called Liberation Technology India. I have co-founded the organization with a team of engineers, social scientists, data scientists, social workers, and we study rural policies, rural social policies in India. It was incubated right here at Stanford University, but ultimately now we operate as an independent group. Our primary goal is to invest a lot of time in these rural areas and understand these last mile challenges. What we do and the method in which we work is integrate with people's movements, campaigns on right to information, right to work, and spend a lot of time listening to people. As you can see, another photograph from fieldwork. We're sitting with old age pensioners and checking the lists to see whether they have actually received their payments or not. The other thing that we do is link institutions with these community organizations, academic audiences, and of course, try to, as and when possible, link these rights holders directly with these institutions. We also work with governments from both local to the national level so that we can influence policy change based on what we learn here. Some of the work that we have done that I'd like to share with you today, one of the things that we published in the Indian Journal of Labor Economics is analyzing hidden delays in payments, which was ultimately used as evidence in a Supreme Court case in India, which sort of led to the government of India being being held accountable for these delays that were sort of pushed under the rug. They were hiding it because they would have to otherwise pay compensation for these delays. So it was masked onto, on their website. We uncovered this and were able to hold the government accountable. Another report that we came out with in 2020 is the length of the last mile, which precisely does that, right? Estimating what are these challenges, what is the cost. One finding that I can share is that in one of the states that we were working, 1/3 of the wages that were earned in that employment guarantee program were used up just to go and collect the payment. And so we started disseminating this report with governments, and that led to a lot of partnerships with state governments who ultimately took up research studies to estimate these costs at the last mile. Another example of the work that we did was to collaborate with labor unions and people's movements in Rajasthan, again, to hold the government accountable for these bounced transactions. What you see here is an article that I co-authored with the Chief Secretary of Rural Development in Rajasthan, and working with the government as well as these people's movements there, we were able to get about $46 million worth of wages of workers released to them. Radha Devi, by the way, was one of those workers. So she did get her wages. And at that juncture, in my professional life is when I learned about the Peace Fellowship. And I thought it was a great opportunity to sort of advance what I was doing. As a Rotary Peace Fellow, one of the key areas that I wanted to work on was trying to improve my research skills. And I trained on rigorous quantitative academic research methods while I was studying here. I also had a great opportunity to cross-learn. So from several fellows who work here, but I also had the opportunity to work as a researcher with the Duke's Development Lab to understand cash transfer programs in Pakistan. And for my master's project currently that I'm working with Professor Maleski on researching payment failures in India and estimating the impact of those failures on employment. Another important thing that I learned here is not only how to do research, but also how to communicate it effectively, which is, I think, such an important part of how you disseminate it, not just to your peers, but also ultimately back to the audience that with whom you're conducting this research. And at the last mile now of my own journey here as a Peace Fellow, I take back with me the endeavor to democratize research, such that, and I'm borrowing this phrase from Dr. Abhay Bang, such that it's not on the people. So, I'm not researching on people with a far-off lens, or for the people where I'm a savior, but with the people, so including people. One of the ideas that I hope to pursue is to expand the platform of my organization, LibTech, to have women at the margins ask and answer research questions that concern them. And I think GBK is going to come and talk a little bit more about a fantastic idea on how representation is so important and an initiative that she's working on. But I think I'd like to end with this quote that Adme shared with me. Nothing about us, without us, is for us. Thank you very much.